All ready to go?
Welcome everybody. We actually are the team of EdCamp Philly. There are more of us, but these were the 4 that could make it today. And we are here just to share a little bit about our model as well as dialogue with things that you might have going on in your schools that you might find exciting. When we first came together, we actually came together by accident. We didn't know each other before we planned this event. We met at a bar camp event in 2010. If you're familiar with a bar camp, it's an unconference, has nothing to do with bars. I see your face. It has to do with computer programming. It was an unconference about computer programming, and we happened to be, a few of the teachers there. There really weren't many more than us. So we sort of stuck together, and after the entire day, we decided through continued networking on Twitter and other social media that we really needed to offer this for teachers. So here we are. This will be our 3rd annual event. We've had over 101 events nationwide as well as internationally in countries like Chile and Sweden. So we're really excited about the momentum that the movement has gotten, and we're just here to share a little bit about our journey and offer you any insight in ways that it might help you. So my name is Kristen Swanson, and obviously this isn't my day job, so what I do when I'm not doing this is I am a consultant for Grant Wiggins. I work with Grant Wiggins, and right now we are working in a project in the Bronx called the iZone Project. So I'm reimagining curriculum and instruction for Bronx students in very needy places, and it's a ton of fun. And this is the rest of my team.
Hi, I'm Jarrett. I teach in a K-4 computer lab in southern New Jersey, and I've been teaching for about 10 years. We're on the verge of transforming my class into a STEM class. So those of you that are interested or have background in science, I want to pick your brain. And I'm very pleased to be here today with the rest of the group.
I'm Mike Ritzius. I am a teacher of science at Camden County Technical Schools in South Jersey. I met this group here when we were presenting a program that I built. It was a new approach to curriculum. We got rid of the curriculum, we got rid of the schedule. And it kind of fits the EdCamp philosophy too, where we give the students some agency and choice in what they do in the classroom.
My name is Beth Hertz, and I teach in a computer lab, and I'm a technology teacher here in Philadelphia. I teach in North Philly near Temple's campus, and I guess do a lot of other stuff, but that's kind of how I got connected with these guys through being a teacher and just kind of being on social media and everything, and it's been a really exciting ride.
And full disclosure, I just finished my dissertation in October, so I totally know where all of you guys are, and I feel a little bad for you. But you'll get through it, it's going to be fine, and you're going to love every minute of it.
Okay, so to start us off, let's look at what everybody thinks of professional development in its current form as we know it. We ran this also at ASCD a few weeks ago, and we asked the audience, so we're going to share those responses with you. But before we do that, let's see how the room feels. We're going to do a think, pair, share, so just with the people around you. Finish the simile. Professional development is like, let's take 2 minutes to do that.
Fill in the blank. And can they show that blank is not that's not the current link?
Yeah, we're not going to hit it today because the Wi-Fi is a little weird.
Oh, it is classy now?
Well, that's what she said, but we don't know what it was.
Oh, gotcha.
Exciting. Good morning.
Oh, I guess what I said wasn't really
a way to build rich professional. I used to, when I was a K-8 principal, I would conduct PD at my school based on feedback that I got from teachers.
It's like wave crashing over you.
I would also bring people in.
It's also
Yeah.
made by you.
It's actually
There's so much when it's there.
It's nice to have you guys.
It's like Jesus. I already talked about foods too.
Okay.
Okay, we almost ready to share? Take a couple more seconds to finish our thoughts. Okay, anybody want to volunteer to go first? Professional development is like?
Did you say something bad?
Well, now I really want to know.
Yeah, you
You
can
see
tab
the
over to the
responses
slide.
later, so.
We can tab over.
Tab
See
over
what
to the
other
slide.
people said. Yeah.
No, I mean, you get a tab, control tab.
Oh, just
If
click
I
on
die
it.
slide,
Okay, which one are you talking about?
Yes.
should the,
Oh, the today's meeting?
yeah, you can command tab over to the, no, not today's meeting, it's a flicker picture.
Okay, I cannot get it.
There we go.
So here we go, this is a little inspiration for
Somebody
you.
Yeah.
shared that.
If anybody's feeling shy,
Can you read the caption?
You're not alone if you're.
Sort of summarizes our feeling about PD.
So what do we think? How's the group feel about PD? What have your experiences been as either as a teacher or as an administrator delivering PD? Or
It's like sorbet. It could be really good for you, but if it's too hot, it gets all drippy and messy. You could get brain freeze.
That's a good one.
Good answer. I like that.
Deep.
Anybody else want to offer anything? Expensive, perhaps?
Does anybody have anything positive to say? Like, you know, we have
It
the
could
joke,
be
this
sorbet's
picture.
good.
Sorbet's positive, it's the right temperature.
Sweet.
doing
So
it in the right
sticky, so
amount?
sticky is a good thing. Sticky's not bad.
Yes.
I compared it to, it's like growing flowers. You know, you're attempting to help people grow and really get better at their practice. In an ideal world, that's its goal.
I was thinking that it's like a brand new app that you want to upload and use, and it's something that's new and innovative.
I made the simile of it being like a wave that crashes over you and then washes away or goes away. Could be that way.
Okay. Anybody else?
It can be like one size fits all.
Okay, it tends to be one size fits all. Okay. Yeah, and it often is. All right. So here's some of the feedback that we saw. It's like a box of chocolate, so it's kind of like that sorbet one. Like you never know what you're going to get. Yeah, sometimes it's good. Sometimes you get that one. It doesn't taste good. It's like getting your teeth pulled, whether you need it or not. Snuffleupagus is important, but nobody's really seen it. So you can see there's a whole range of feelings about professional development. Some people feel like they receive something meaningful from it. Some people feel like they're being subjected to torture. And that's what we saw whenever we ask this question. Is like when we ask about traditional PD, we get this full gamut of emotions that come along with it. When we were talking about EdCamp, our feelings about the PD that we'd been subjected to in the past skewed towards the negative, and we wanted to offer something to help augment that. You know, we wanted to make PD feel more relevant and meaningful for people. And after our experience at the bar camp, we saw what that really looked like. And with that, I'm going to give it over to Kristen.
So obviously when we started to use this model, we really started to look very deeply into what the research says. And we've more recently been looking at Guskey's new book about evaluating professional development as a framework for possibly doing some further research. But one of the things that we pulled here is from How People Learn. And How People Learn, if you haven't read it, is a fantastic report that was recently published by National Academies Press. And it's a synthesis of the most recent brain research as well as learning research on all of the different strategies. If you know, whether you take anything away from this presentation or not, if you download that report and read chapter 4 on transfer, I guarantee it'll change your life. But that's neither here nor there. One of the things also included in that book is a nice summary of professional development and the studies that have been done on it. And from their meta-analysis, they found that it's frequently not learner-centered, knowledge-centered, assessment-centered, or community-centered when we deliver professional development. And that happens for a variety of reasons. And it also happens because teachers operate within a variety of systems. So based on the type of system, district, organization that your teacher might perhaps belong to, some of these particular environments can be skewed. So with that being said, we really wanted to develop something that speaks to these 4 domains. And we think that the EdCamp model does in fact do that. And we recently have actually put together a short qualitative paper on how these themes are reflected, actually not by our participants, but in the reflective blog posts that they spontaneously write after the event. So we went online and we sort of scoured the blogs for people writing about their EdCamp experiences, and these 4 themes came through very strongly. The most strong theme, I would say, would be the community-centered piece, because what we find is that when people come to events like this, they say, oh my gosh, I finally met people who understand what I'm going through, or they tried this same experiment and it worked or it didn't work. And that community piece and those connections and that networking tends to be one of the most powerful things that people take away from the EdCamp experience.
All right, yeah, this is the video. Is it ready to roll? Before you press play, is it just press play and it'll start?
Yeah, but we got to turn the sound up.
Okay. Yeah, before you do that, Mike, this is a video that was put together at the original EdCamp Philly by a neighbor of Mike's who happens to be a professional videographer, who said, can I come shoot some video at EdCamp? And we said, of course, love to have you. And he walked around throughout the whole day with all of his gear, looked very professional. We didn't know what was going to happen, what he was going to generate. And it turns out he built this beautiful 2-minute summary that has now been seen countless times all over the internet that really, we believe, summarizes the value and experience of EdCamp for folks that are completely new to the concept. So hopefully the speakers are on. Just press the space bar.
You have to click it.
Click the picture. He's a PC.
I am a PC.
Okay. I got it.
She's a Mac.
EdCamp is comfortable. It's motivating.
That is really cool.
What does it mean in today's landscape to do good research?
EdCamp is organic, participant-driven professional development. There are no keynotes, there is no set schedule, and the participants set the agenda.
How many of you are teacher educators?
The purpose of the workshops today are to put a bunch of really smart people together in a room and share ideas and talk. Really what we're trying to do at events like this are amplify each other's ideas and really leverage those to help improve what we do, and that's teach kids.
These are Drupal blogs, so living to 8th grade work in 2009, 2010.
We're seeing a wide range of educators coming from all of these different schools within the city, counties surrounding Philadelphia, and it's leading to some really rich conversations around what's going on and where are we going in education.
How can you play with this stuff in a way that kids are going to get something out of it?
I love how much technology is integrated into it. We're on Twitter, and you can just go and you can see what's going on not only in your own workshop, but what's going on in all the other workshops at the same time.
You can see it in their faces. Everybody wants to raise their hand and talk because they have so many ideas to contribute.
I think the thing to keep in mind first is this is a conversation. We don't mean this to be a lecture.
I see a commitment from the educators here at this conference to engage and make this a really positive experience.
I'm really here to learn from everybody. That's why I came today.
EdCamp is an effective professional development. I can take what I've learned today back to my school and use similar ideas in our own professional development.
Our hope is that school districts across the nation will adopt the EdCamp model for professional development.
EdCamp has provided opportunity for people to think and talk about their educational philosophy, attend something for nothing, and come away with great ideas. I think that's really important.
And that video is available on the Edcamp Foundation blog. It's actually all over the internet.
This has been a True Life Media production.
And that video is actually donated by the author to the foundation. And so we now have the rights to it, or getting it sent out as broadly as we can.
So one of the other things to keep in mind about EdCamp that's a little bit different than traditional professional development is if you've heard of this flipped classroom concept, EdCamp is really the flipped PD concept. So in effect, there are these personalized learning spaces where anytime, anywhere learning is happening, whether it's on Twitter, whether it's on your blog, and there's a lot of communication that's going on. And then those are the experiences that you bring to the learning session. And it doesn't only have to be digital. Certainly these types of experiences that you're having here in your coursework, as well as other types of experiences that you might be having in your schools, PLCs, things of that nature. The idea is that you bring these things into a social space, and when you meet in that social space, you're able to dialogue and evaluate and think more deeply about them by interacting in a way that's a free exchange of ideas.
Yeah. And I want to add to that too. This also creates a long tail for the learning. It's not the learning happens at the event and then you go off and do your thing. The conversation starts during sessions online, and then it keeps going. So if a neat idea was shared and somebody put it out on their blog or put it out on the internet, that conversation will go on for hours, days, sometimes weeks and months, depending on what the subject is.
That reminds me of your wave analogy. The idea it's like comes in and then leaves. This stays and hangs out for a while rather than just pulling away and disappearing.
And the reason it stays is because the connections you've made with people are what remain. Because knowledge is one thing poured into your head, but when you're actually interacting with passionate folks that share your ideas, then it's a spiral. It just keeps going up and up.
And I think one of the other things that's important to keep in mind is the fact that putting the right people in the right places is really important. And you know that, when you think about the work of putting the right people in the right seats on the bus and all of those types of pieces. And what we really try to do here is we really try to make sure we have the right people in the sessions. And there's no way to guarantee that. That's not what the model does. But we find that if somebody's going to give up a Saturday to come to a free event about teaching and learning, they're usually the right people.
So we wanted to kind of walk you through what an EdCamp event is like. So, basically, the first day, or first thing in the morning, you can see that's some of the sidewalk chalk that Kristen wrote at our first EdCamp Philly. Just kind of starting off the day with, I'm going to move to the next slide. That's better. Starting off the day with check-in. So we get to actually see all the people that come in, and we get to kind of welcome them into the space. We get free t-shirts. That year we did. I think the last 2 years we did, right? And you can see that the people, as they come in, they kind of start gathering. And the beginning is very social. So it's not come in and sit down and get ready to sit and listen to somebody. It's sit down and have some time to find out who's here with me, and who are these people I'm going to be spending the day with, and talking to them and meeting new people. And that really makes a difference later on in the sessions, because you actually have already made that connection with people before you actually join in the learning. And if I keep checking my phone, it's because we're trying to Skype in, and he just texted me, trying to Skype in somebody from EdCamp NC, North Carolina, which is happening today. So I'm not trying to be rude checking my phone. He's texting me to let me know. So yeah, that's the picture of kind of what that social time looks like. All EdCamps pretty much have that time just because of the way the event's set up. So let me see. And that's because the schedule at EdCamp is built by the participants. So that time, that social time, is not only time to network, but it's that time when the schedule itself gets built. And it's usually about like an hour. Is that like not? Like
an hour to 90 minutes.
Yeah, something like that. And it differs for each EdCamp how they decide to actually create the schedule. So you can see here, this is like a little, this actually is wrapped around a pole, but this is ours, right, from the first one. So there's index cards on that one, and then this one is more like a foam board. So it doesn't really matter what the schedule's on. What matters is that the participants actually put the sessions up there and decide what they're going to present and what time. So you can see over here, we've made up a little model of a schedule, a mock schedule, yes. So basically, if you're sitting around talking with somebody in the morning and you find out that a teacher's just got an iPad cart, and you're getting an iPad cart in your class or in your school, you might decide to sit down and say, hey, let's talk about iPads. And then you go up to the schedule and you get a sticky note or a card or whatever, however the schedule is set up, and you write down, maybe using iPads in the classroom. And then you would go over and choose a time and a room, whatever was open, decide when you were going to do it, and put it up there on the schedule. And then once it's up on the schedule, it's a thing. It's going to happen. And it's not like, the organizers look at the schedule and say, okay, well, which ones do we want, or which ones do we think people want? It's whatever's up there is what's going to be offered. So that's a big thing that makes it very different.
The people vote with their feet by showing up at the session.
So Kristen talked about whoever is supposed to be there is there, and that's kind of the philosophy that if I'm running a session, whoever is supposed to be there is going to be there. And if somebody walks in and realizes, this isn't what I thought it was going to be, or I wanted to go here, but then there was that other session going on. I'm not really sure. I think I'm going to go to the other one. There's something called the rule of 2 feet or the law of 2 feet. that you don't have to feel tied to whatever session you're in. So if you walk into a session and you just, by the title you realize, oh, well, it's not exactly what I thought it was going to be, people are not offended by you getting up and leaving, because why should you be there if that's not the place for you, where you could have a better conversation or have a more meaningful interaction with people in a different session.
Which is a real paradigm shift for most people.
Yeah.
You can't imagine getting up in front of a conference, in a formal conference somewhere, and just walking out of the room. That's disrespectful.
And it's
but it's very much the ethos of
I can't sit in a session anymore. Like it's kind of like now it's like that mentality of.
It's ruined it for me too.
Yeah.
I can't go to a conference.
Yeah.
I can't enjoy regular conferences. I can't. I'm just.
One of the things that's really important to remember is I often get questions, before I took the job with Grant, I was a district administrator, a director of technology for Springfield Township School District, if you're familiar with them. I know some of my colleagues have been through the program as well. But one of the things that often administrators say to me is, we can't do that at my school because how do I know that what the person is presenting is of high quality? And that's where the rule of 2 feet really comes in. So if somebody is presenting something that's usually not of high quality, people leave. And they're sort of left in a close to empty room. And we've seen that happen before, where somebody came in and sort of started things off in a questionable way, and next thing you know, the room is practically empty. So while we certainly can't control the content because any schedule or any session is deemed a good session on the schedule, we certainly can allow participants to self-select what's valuable and what's not.
Another example from that too, I had sat in a session where the content was questionable, and the audience started to ask pointed questions of the presenter. And so the focus isn't that the presenter is the repository of all knowledge. It's that we're all learners in the room. And they actually started to help the presenter move away from this misconception that they had and help refine that knowledge there too. So everybody's learning in the room at the time, regardless of where you are, whether you're in the front of the room or if you're in the audience. Everybody's looked at as a learner rather than this expert that's going to just deliver information to the group. Yeah.
You're saying something that's causing a disconnect in my head. One is like you're saying that there's a presenter, but then you're saying that whatever these sessions are kind of organic.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm imagining like, oh, I have a presentation session that I want to present, so during the morning I'm trying to get people interested in it, or is it like a bunch of us are interested and we're going to end up discussing it as a group?
I think the word presenter is probably not the best word. Facilitator is probably a better word.
And the sessions are very different. Some sessions are like a teacher might be working on a project and might want to share that project. So that in that sense they really are presenting their project, and they might be at the front of the room with a projector saying this is the digital storytelling project my students did, and then it will go into discussion and back and forth conversation. So there might be that kind of session. We had a session where some guys teach robotics. They brought in robots, and the whole session was talking about looking at the robots going around on the mats and talking about robotics programs. There are other sessions where people actually don't know anything about the topic, and they are I do that all the time. I'm like, I want to know more, so I'm going to do this session, and I'm going to say, you teach me. I'm here because I want to know what you know about this topic. So there's not one particular kind of session.
One of the most popular ones is the things that suck sessions. They're a staple of EdCamps. So the facilitator throws out a topic, and then the people in the room have to move to different areas. If they think it sucks, they go over there. If they think it rocks, they go over there. And if they're on the fence, they stay in the middle. And all the facilitator does is manage the conversation between the people in the different groups.
And I'm going to interrupt this because Steve's ready. Okay. So who I'm calling is Steve Anderson. He is one of the organizers of EdCamp North Carolina. So I'm just going to call him up.
Days going?
Yeah, I'm going to ask him. I'm going to see if I can ask him at least why they chose to come to EdCamp, and so far what they've gotten out, because they just are at lunch. Steve, can you hear me?
Sounds good.
Oh, Steve, can you hear me? Ooh. Yeah. Sorry, I'm like, there you go. So we are at Penn talking to some people about EdCamp and sharing kind of what it's all about. And our speakers are making noise. And
sounds like a engine.
yeah, you know what? I think it's because they're right next to the computer.
Can you point them away?
So I guess you guys are both organizers. So what made you want to organize an EdCamp?
Bethany?
And go ahead and introduce yourselves.
So I'm Steve Smith. I'm at the College of Education at NC State University.
And I'm Stephen Anderson. I'm a district instructional technologist in Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
And I think the big reason that we wanted to have an EdCamp was because we have a good team in North Carolina. We have NC Ties, which is the ISTE affiliate conference. But one of the things we liked about EdCamp was that it was going to allow us to do just-in-time professional development, so that things that were relevant to teachers, as well as things that were going to allow teachers to really want to self-buy-in, like they really wanted to be here, this is an event they could do. For me, being at a college of education, my big thing was I wanted our pre-service teachers to be here, I wanted our graduate students to be here, and I wanted our faculty to be here, to be able to see what's happening in schools, what's awesome in schools, as well as give them some preparation. So that was one of our big things, is I really felt that higher ed wasn't doing a lot in EdCamp.
Well, and the just-in-time, I think, is the big piece of that, where, you know, there's a big push right now with the flipped classroom. So there's a session getting ready to come up right now at 1 o'clock where a lot of people are going to go to talk about flipped classrooms. We had a session right before lunch about BYO versus one-to-one. What are the advantages? What are the disadvantages? We have one of the people, the native leaders in using gaming in the classroom. So he's able to do a session on using gaming. These are all things that teachers are constantly talking about, things that they want to do and things that they want to learn about. And so when you go to a traditional conference, we can go to ISTE is a wonderful conference, ASCD is a wonderful conference, NC Ties are our local conferences. They're all great, but here you really have the choice of if you're knowledgeable about a topic and you want to share it with somebody, and then you put it on the board and present it. You know, have a conversation about it. You really have the opportunity to learn and to experience what you want to learn and experience about.
Awesome. Can you talk a little bit about the schedule building experience this morning? Sorry, you can't see me. Just kind of how that was, because I know this. You know, we've been just talking about the schedule, so maybe you could share a little bit about that.
Okay, so I was completely freaked out. I was having a control freak moment about the schedule just because there was no schedule, and I was freaking out that people wouldn't sign up to talk about anything, and then everybody did.
We had all the rooms listed out on the wall, and we had a sheet of paper underneath each room for the time slot. And I had to go. I went picked up the food, so I got here a little later. But by the time I was here, there were like 3 sessions that were left to be filled, and people really took to that. They just whatever they wanted to do, they put it up on the board. There were some people, you know, there were some people who would say, "Oh, I don't feel like I'm knowledgeable about anything, or I don't want to present, or I don't want to start a conversation." But then you've got those people who they really want to share what they're doing, or they propose a session that they want to hear somebody else talk about. And so if you have something that you want to learn about, you can suggest that session, and then, you know, say, well, I suggested this session because it's something I want to learn about. Let's talk about it. And even if you have a room full of people who don't know anything, well, that's a conversation, because then you really kind of collaborate on the things that you don't know, and how can you find them, and where do you go to find them, and you talk to about it.
And I think for us too, what helped was we had a person, Marlo, that basically stood by the scheduling board with the Sharpie and was inviting people to come over, was encouraging that to happen, was talking to them about that process, because a lot were concerned they didn't understand the process. So I think that helped out really well. And the fact that we ended up being able to adjust our schedule on the fly. So we decided to actually start 30 minutes earlier because it figured out a lot faster than we planned. And we just crossed out the times and read it, and now we're all good.
It's funny because the stuff you're saying is like the exact verbatim stuff that we've been saying, so it's pretty awesome that it's like you'd think that this was planned or something. So is there anything else you guys want to share about kind of the day or about your experiences maybe organizing it?
It's the beauty. I think really the beauty of this is that it's easy, and it's so, it just felt like, organic is it's Earth Day, it's a great term to use today. It was so, we've always talked about doing EdCamp in North Carolina, and Bethany finally said, we're going to do this. And she said, this is what we're doing, and if you want to organize it, I started a group, and anybody's invited. I mean, and it got down and closer to the time, and we got our venue, and it's like you don't have to schedule the sessions because the participants schedule the sessions. It was really a low stress event for the people who are planning, but for the people who are attending, the thing that we've heard over and over and over again here is how wonderful this time for them is. We've got people here who are here on a Saturday who have traveled we have some people who've traveled, they got up at 4 o'clock this morning so that they could come to be here to spend their day here. I mean, that says something about this type of professional development, that they're willing to give up time and travel, and with gas being expensive, that they need this and they want this, and that it's easy to do. And if you look at the number, and I'm sure Mary Beth has said the number of EdCamps that have just gone up all over the place, it's an amazing experience that's so easy. Anybody can, if we can do it, anybody can do it.
And last night we kept staring at each other. There gotta be something that we're supposed to do. Like I feel like there was something else that was supposed to happen, and it was amazing how kind of low stress it was. I think the biggest stress I had was about the schedule. What happens if nobody wants to talk? And I should have known that we're teachers and know better that we're teachers, we like to talk. So I think that worked out really well. And I think Mary Beth had said this before, is that once you have the venue, you're pretty much good. Like once you have the place and can get stuff going, it really all fell into place. We tried to think of jobs that everybody could do and have a certain person be in charge of that job, like one person in charge of the website, one person in charge of sponsorship, to kind of put all that together. I also think Eventbrite worked out really well for us, being able to have the tickets and check in. We did definitely have less attendance than we had people that signed up for it. So I think we had over 180 people signed up. We have just a little bit less than 100 that showed up. But I'm okay with that. I'm good. It's our first EdCamp. Nobody really knew what it was.
But it still feels like, it still feels like a lot of people here, but I just can't get over, I led a conversation right before lunch, but I was able to, to hear what people are saying and to talk to some people, and they're just like, this is exactly what I need. And I think that's the key, is that your EdCamp can be really what you want it to be. And because your participants will drive what your sessions are going to be about, and that's what teachers need. We talked about that we talked about why PD sucks in one of our sessions. Because that's what they wanted to talk about. They wanted to talk about how to make PD better, and it was a great conversation. And then we're able to share that because we're using Twitter, and we're using today's meeting, we're using all these products. We're able to share that not with the participants here, but with everybody around the world.
Awesome. Well, we're going to continue our presentation, but I really want to thank you guys for taking the time to talk to us. It was awesome. And enjoy the rest of your afternoon. All right, have fun, guys.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
So just from what you've heard so far, what questions are cropping up into your mind?
I'm wondering if, what I would have asked them through the opportunities.
And I'm sorry, I didn't want to, was that bad that I didn't open it up?
No,
I didn't want to take too much time with that because we only have an hour. So.
Well, and they're running their day.
Yeah,
so
this
I
is
know
their lunch,
crazy.
they're the organizers. So.
I was wondering if all the rooms were the same size, and if not, how do they allocate which session goes in which room?
That's
the large room, gets the small room.
That's the beautiful thing. You heard her say we adjusted our schedule and started half an hour earlier. We've had that happen where, like all of a sudden you realize that this one might be really popular and it's in a small room. All you have to do is talk to the people that are presenting. Hey, would you mind presenting in this room instead? And like just talking to the people, and then we've never run into where someone's like, no, I want to present in that room.
That was going to be a popular session. What was your evidence?
I would say there's three main evidence sources. The first one would be the back channel. So Twitter is a huge part of the day for most of the attendees. And one thing I do want to just spell as well is many of the sessions that you heard pitched were about technology. That's just because we all tend to be geeks in this room, and all the people we know are geeks. But there can certainly be a much broader depth of content that's presented and shared and talked about. The second, so by checking that back channel, we have an idea of what people are probably going to go to, what they're probably interested in. Plus, in that room, during that 90 minutes where the schedule is building, there's momentum that kind of starts to happen. And we as organizers are filtering through the crowd, talking with people, getting an idea of what might...
Also, there are certain topics that obviously are hot topics. Like if you're talking about apps, or you're talking about, like, we're in tune with kind of what's popular today. I mean, that's what they were talking about, just-in-time PD. There are things right now that are very popular, the flipped classroom. I mean, if you want to talk about flipped classroom, you're probably going to get a lot of people because this is what's hot right now in education. So, I mean, you can also judge that way.
Yeah, New York used a system, EdCamp New York used exactly dots.
The dots, yeah.
So they gave people a strip of dots and said, if you want to go to this session, go up to the board and just put your sticker on there. And as you saw the dots peripherally on a particular card, that would be a visual sign.
And Barcamp Philly does that too.
Yeah. And there are people on the floor too. It's very informal. People are lounging on the floor. There's people are at chairs and people are standing in the corner. It's what's most comfortable and what works for the people that are in the room at that time.
And if they have to move to a new room, they literally could leave a physical space. Well, let's get to a bigger room, okay, or a smaller room, and then we just get up and go find somewhere else
and
to go.
And tweet out, we're now in this room.
Yeah.
I know 2 hands up. I guess you want to go and then you can go.
Is there an ideal size or of number of participants?
Per session or per camp?
How big, how small?
EdCamp's really based on open space technology, which states that the people who are here are the right people, the things that are talked about are the right things, and the things that happen are the right things to happen. So we've had small EdCamps. We've had EdCamp. Our first EdCamp was, I want to say, like between 50 and 80 people. And this year we actually have 350 people registered. So obviously it's probably gaining in popularity, but like it doesn't really matter what the size is. The other thing I will say is that when you throw a free event, expect only about half the people who register to show up.
And it was in Vancouver, or I forget, I think it was in Canada, there's some people that ran one that had like 20 people.
So there's a certain critical mass that you need to have so that there's enough conversations to go up, because obviously with 20 folks, you can't all break off into 20 rooms.
And we actually, our schedule, our first year, we realized that we had such a large attrition rate, and we cut, because of the way Kristen designed the schedule, we were able to just cut the schedule in half. So we only put half the rooms up on the schedule, so that when we knew that we had a smaller amount of people, we knew that the rooms would fill up, so that it wouldn't be too many people spread out over too many sessions.
And I would say, like, in thinking about the number of rooms and the number of people, I would say that the most you would ever need would be like 10 people per room. So if you have 50 people, 5 rooms, that's usually sort of a good parameter to judge it.
What was your question?
I think it was similar. So the minimum size you would think would be about 10. So
for a session?
Yeah.
About that. I mean, I would say that, and again, sometimes there's a really popular session, sometimes there's a session where everybody leaves, so but I would say on average, most sessions are between 10 and 15 people.
And therefore, with the dot system, if you saw that some sessions were running under that, might those people collapse where they see that there's synergy among topics?
We actually had that happen. Were you there at Harrisburg?
Yeah.
Yeah, we were into EdCamp Harrisburg, so we actually drove an hour and a half out to go to EdCamp. It was higher EdCamp, right?
No, it was Harrisburg. It wasn't.
Okay, all right. So we had a session that we had presented on the board, and there was another session, and were they kind of similar? I'm trying to remember what it was.
So it was basically like somebody wanted to do like an intro to Twitter, and somebody wanted to do like a what is Twitter, and so they were like, hey, do you guys want to work together? And they were like, sure.
Oh,
so
I'm
they
thinking of something
put the 2 sessions together, and it worked out.
Well, because we had an experience, maybe it was Ann and Kim and I, where we went out to, I think it was higher ed camp, and nobody showed up for our session. So we're sitting there, and we're like, okay. So then we look at the schedule and realized that like there was another session that we felt comfortable going and joining the conversation. So we just went and co-presented with that group because nobody showed up to ours. So and that was partially because they didn't do a good job with the size. That actually was when we learned kind of from other people's mistakes. We came back. This was before our event. So we were like, let's feel out. Maybe it was Barcamp Harrisburg.
That must be
Barcamp Harrisburg. But we learned by attending that unconference, realizing, oh, well, they had too many rooms and they didn't have enough attendees, so there weren't enough people to fill the sessions. And so when we came back, we were able to share that experience and ended up changing the way we did our schedule. And most of the organizers try to attend at least a Barcamp or an EdCamp before they actually hold their event. but not everybody does. And you could hear them talking how like some people who showed up had no idea what they had come to. You know, they just, yeah, they show up and they don't really know what they're getting themselves into, but it works.
Yeah, and these are guidelines, they're not hard and fast rules. You don't want to try and control it too much because that tends to squash the magic that happens, you know, those serendipitous moments when, and sometimes 3 people in a room will have a wonderful conversation. I had that opportunity. We tried, NJEA, I'm very involved with them, and they tried to bring this into their convention almost 3 or 4 months after the first Edcamp Philly. It was a little too soon for it. But in the area, it was David Warlick and I and one of my NJEA colleagues, and we sat around for an hour, and David kind of navigated the conversation, but it was one of the most fulfilling conversations I've ever had with him.
David's pretty awesome.
He's a pretty awesome guy, but he really helped clarify some things for me and point me in the direction with some of the things I was doing in my classroom.
Right, so don't worry if it's small.
Yeah.
Well, you know, we've been talking rooms, I'm sorry, we've been talking rooms, but is it possible, like in a ballroom space, to have table sessions? Or
Yeah, and I mean, you mean where people, each table is a different conversation kind of thing? Yeah, I mean, that's the awesome thing about it, is that it's really a concept. It's a concept with a few guidelines, but you make of it what you make of it. You know,
the biggest challenge you would face would be noise.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have to do all our sessions that way, but we think.
Well, EduBloggerCon is like that. I mean, there's another conference, EduBloggerCon, it happens before ISTE, where it really is like that, where everybody is together for a big group, and then you make a circle of chairs over here, you make a circle of chairs over there, and that's how the conversation happens.
Yep. And I think you're also saying that that's the ratio that we should plan for, sort of like 1 to 10, so that if we think we have 200 people, we should plan for about 20.
Exactly. We want to what you want is you have registrants and then you have expected people. The attrition rate is right around 50% on a free event. So we've got 350 registered. We'll probably have 400 by we shut the registration on May 13th. So we should expect and plan for 200 people. So that tells us, based on how many folks per session, how many rooms we're going to need. And if you're in a venue where you can easily add a room or 2, then you're golden. Then it's completely no stress.
Thank you.
So I'm looking at the time, that's all, I don't know.
Which is?
Where there's so much interest in one session that it exceeds the size of your largest room. In that case, have you seen people just split apart into two
We've never had, I mean,
sometimes there's redundant sessions.
Yeah.
So people walk in, let's do crowd, I'll catch the one in here.
Yeah, we've got pictures from Edcamp Philly sitting on the floor, people in the hallway.
I want to say there's.
You'd be amazed how, if you're motivated, how.
I'll do a quick run through because we haven't even gotten past schedule. And you know, we had planned this before. Mike had the idea of Skyping in Steve Anderson and Bethany, so that kind of took a little bit of time. But I noticed there's only 10 minutes left, so I want to make sure that we at least get through a little bit of the day. The biggest thing about kicking things off is that there's no keynote. That is not, that's Kevin, right?
Yeah.
So that's not Kevin talking about how all these awesome things and da-da-da. That's Kevin saying, this is the Wi-Fi password, the schedule's here, this is the hashtag, so it's really just, here's the rule, this is what the rule of 2 feet is. So it really is just 10 minutes of housekeeping, yeah. So, and you can see that kind of on the slide of what's being talked about. Oops. So as far as sharing in sessions, this is where we talked about room size. There's the robot guys. They were actually in an auditorium, and there was just the front row, like 8 people sitting in the front row of the auditorium, just talking with them. You can see how informal it is with just hanging out in the chairs. You can see a lot of people do have netbooks. This is our laptops. This is the Things That Suck session. So this is our foundation president Dan running. It looks like a Things That Suck because people are standing up in different parts of the room. So lunch, that's where they were coming back from lunch, so that's what Bethany and Steve, so that's why we had kind of a weird timing for them. But some ed camps do lunch on site, some ed camps do lunch on your own. We do lunch on our own because we're in a city, but if you're in a rural or suburban setting, a lot of times people do it in-house because it's a little bit different trying to find a place to eat. A lot of the people will get like a vendor to come drop off food, and people might pay like $5 in the morning to get a lunch or something like that. It's a really awesome place where, we were talking about those conversations that keep going. So whatever you were talking about in the morning, you might go to lunch with those people that you just met because that session was so engaging and that conversation was so engaging, you're not done talking about it. So lunch is usually long, it's like an hour, usually an hour and a half, right?
Plus they have to like figure out where they are and find somewhere to eat, and that takes time.
But even, you know, it definitely, even when we went to EdCamp Harrisburg, they had lunch on site, but it was still an hour, you know, so you really give people that time.
It's all about the conversation.
There is sometimes an attrition rate at like people do leave after lunch sometimes, so you can expect that sometimes the afternoon sessions might be a little bit lighter. We did a raffle and had like what did we do? We taped the tickets underneath the chairs, so kind of like an incentive, like if you stay to the end, there's something in it for you. That obviously is where it was, but you can see how informal it is. When people are kind of finding places to kind of hang out and sit and talk. Sometimes people don't even go to sessions. Sometimes they just find someone to talk to, and they'll sit and talk to them during that hour and not actually go to a session. And then at the end of the day, this is not a keynote either, but this is our president, foundation president Dan, talking about all the different ed camps that have been going on. And this was a while ago, so there's actually more now.
That map now.
Yeah, so
one of the things that we often do also at the end of the day is sometimes we'll have something called a smackdown. So every day, every person who would like to share gets 1 minute, and you have 1 minute to share your learning strategy, app, or tool. You share it, the minute's up, you're off, and essentially in 30 minutes you get 30 tools, that type of thing.
And we did that in this setting. So we used this, these projectors, and then people just came up and showed their tool. So, I mean, that's just kind of...
You come away with like a Google
Google
list.
Doc. Yep, somebody keeps track of all the tools, and then at the end shares them with everybody, so now everybody has the list.
So, you know, just kind of talking about the variety of sessions, you can just see how, you know, here's an example of somebody showing their work, or their student work, or project that they're working on, and then sometimes people are just sitting around and talking. So, you know, this is even like a little conversational, you know, two-way conversation. So there really is no right or wrong way to run a session. It really is just what makes sense for the conversation. Should I?
I don't think we're going to.
I know. Is there any other slides that you want me to fast forward to?
Maybe just the second to last one, or the actual last one with the map.
Well, fortunately for us, we don't have to return to class, so I think this spills over.
Well, I think the why not slide is actually a good one to close with too.
Well, Bethany was talking about too the idea that nobody would show up and nobody would present, and that's something that people always think. Like, when we did our first one, we're like, what if nobody wants to say anything? What if nobody wants to talk? And
the first half hour for the organizers is like, there's nothing on the board for that half hour, but it all comes together at the end. Yeah, I mean, it really is magic. You know, one person sticks it up there, and then they just.
The other thing to remember is, you know, budgets are tight, and this is free. Right? This is using your resources, whether it's internal or from the community, putting it together. We use sponsors for any of the little things that we need. Wharton has been kind enough for 2 years in a row to give us their space to use. If you are interested in attending our event is on May 19th, and you can register at edcampphilly.org. I know you guys have class. But there's also EdCamp Leadership, which is in July. So that's edcampleadership.org, and that's probably way more up your alley because it's actually just limited to people who are administrators or teacher leaders in the education profession. And we're hoping to have a lot of conversations around where things are going. So.
And Kevin, I interrupted you. What were you trying to say about the why not?
Well, I just thought the why not slide was a good one because they're probably sitting here thinking, should we do this, should we not, and why not? So if there's other questions that they have around that, we would love to queue them up in the last few minutes.
I have a question. Do you foresee this model being used in school districts, embedded in how they do professional development, or do you see it more being the standalone that some things are happening here?
The schools that are doing it now, there are several. Dan Callahan School is doing it. Patrick Larkin School is doing it. What they've done is they make it part of their PD strategy. So it doesn't become the PD strategy, but they have an unconference style event at some point, whether it's a day or a half day. And it's been working really well for the folks because it really honors the experience and expertise of the folks, the teachers that are in your school. I say, we trust you to spend a day not just lounging around talking about, you know, your favorite TV show, but actual things that matter in professional practice. And when you treat it professional like a professional, you get professional results. And so the folks, the early adopters are having great success doing it on a limited scale.
And it builds on things that we know that work already, like professional learning communities. It can be a way to augment your professional learning communities. It's a way to share what those communities are doing. Critical friends groups is a way to augment that too. And so it can really build on things we already know that work.
And you know that you have that one person that perhaps works in your building, and you're thinking in your mind, like, oh, what's that person going to do if we have a day like this? But I will tell you that all of the feedback that we've gotten from people who have tried this in their local districts have said, even that one person who I knew was going to be sort of an itch ended up really engaging and enjoyed it.
So do we want to try to do this in the last
4 minutes?
4 minutes?
I think maybe we just close it out.
Okay. I just want to double check.
I think what would be helpful for those that's still kind of abstract, you know, what this actually looks like and feels like. Is there like a Google Doc out there that we could share so you could see some of the results of the day?
I've sent out, I forget who I sent it to, the original schedule from EdCamp Philly, the first one that you created in Google Docs.
It's on the blog.
That's on our blog.
Is it on our blog? Okay, because I know I sent a link to it to somebody.
There's also, the reflection posts are very powerful.
And the Scoop It link on the foundation page curates all of the reflection posts that people share out there.
Thank you, Kristen.
So if you hit the Scoop It link, you'll be able to see what other people have said about their experience at EdCamp.
So
Both
you can
positive
take
and
a look
negative.
here, and you can see these are all posts that people have posted about things they learned at an EdCamp, their experiences, what they liked, what they didn't like, their concerns, their fears. So this is really, if you want to kind of hear what people are saying, you can check this.
And you can see a lot, that was right there, even the sampling of different EdCamps from
all over the world. Yep.
And do you want me to show the schedule?
Yeah.
Search for schedule.
Well, you know what I was showing though is the one that was already built.
Yep.
It's on there.
Scroll up, Kristen, to the right, search box. There you go. Just schedule.
I didn't know it was up there.
Yeah.
Okay.
There it is. Boom. That's last year's schedule. And the beauty of this is, it's actually a two-person process. We have Kristen manning this Google Doc, typing like a fiend, entering stuff, and we have somebody else kind of organizing the flow of people. Because she needs to know, okay, room 3, here's the card, boom, and she's typing, and someone else is sort of guiding the process.
It doesn't go on the board until it goes through her.
Right.
So you're at the table,
She's
you're filling out your card, it goes to Kristen, she puts it into the Google Doc, and then somebody puts it on the board. But it doesn't go on the board until it's gone into the Google Doc, so that we make sure that there's no overlap or anything like that.
And then obviously it's live, so people have it on their devices, their phones, their laptops, everything else. Something changes, they just go right to it.
But we still have, as you saw, the physical schedule because, you know, as much as we are geeks, there are people that show up with pencil and paper, and there are people that show up that aren't on Twitter and don't have a blog and aren't involved in any of that, and they're still able to go and check that schedule and be part of it. Because that was one thing, you know, it's not a technology conference. We didn't want people to think that this is all that it's about. You know, the conversations range all over the place.
Also on the thought of the expertise in the room and determining whether the sessions would be of value, one of the things we try to do is we feature attendees on the blog that come. So if you're coming, you can say who you are and what you're going to be interested in talking about. So these people will come and they send us a picture and we feature them on the blog. So people say, oh, interesting, this person's a principal or they're a teacher with a particular background that I might want to see. And again, that's on the EdCamp. So here you go, like, perfect. And that's a form that they fill out, and then it comes to us and we put it into a blog post.
So that's another way for people to make that connection, you know, that flipped idea, where you make that connection with who's coming before you get there. So when you get there, you could even say, I want to find that person that also teaches social studies because I want to connect with them, and because I liked what they put up on there, and I even liked their session idea, because that's one of the questions is what session would you run? And maybe I want to run that session. So it's that idea of you're coming to the event already with that kind of background knowledge of who's going to be there and what's going to be talked about.
Isn't that what you guys did at Bar Camp when we first came? When we first met?
Yeah.
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 You all connected online.
Yeah, well, we had only known each other through Twitter. I mean, I was trying to meet up with my friend Ann. I'd never seen her in my life. So imagine me on 15th Street right by City Hall because she's getting off the R something or other. And I'm, you know, DMing her on Twitter going, where are you? What are you wearing? You know, so that it was pretty powerful to have that experience. And then 2 years later, sitting here, and you know, these are my friends. Like, these are people that I work with, but they're people that I consider close friends at this point. So it's been an awesome
our community preference.
Can you tell us a little bit about your purposes for the share out at the end?
The Smackdown, you mean the
Is that
tool,
what you
web tool, the web tool, the 1 minute and everybody shares thing?
So,
Some have done share outs. You could have people come and say, this is what I learned and whatever. But what we found is that most people have so many cool things that they want to talk about, that this idea of a smackdown where they want to talk about a program they've used or an app or something, the folks that would not have the courage to lead a session will absolutely come up and talk for a minute and say, oh, I found VoiceThread and it's great because of this, and this is what I've done. Boom, and they're off. After 1 or 2
could
minutes.
you change that and tailor it to
That's
fit?
each group. That's the whole group.
Anybody wants a minute.
Anybody wants a minute, and the whole group gets together at the end. It's one of the most popular.
People really
events.
like it.
They really love it.
But again, you could tailor that to, you have a minute to talk about whatever.
Assessment.
It doesn't have to be,
Yep.
you can tailor that. Any other questions?
How do you publicize?
Good question.
Get a wide array
So
of people?
one of the things that can help you sort of understand as far as how people hear about us is we recently did a survey for all of the people who registered. And how should I search Wordle, Kevin? How
Yeah,
they
that'll do it.
found us. So we actually had people respond, where did you hear about us?
It's not up.
Oh, okay.
That was
Twitter is like in 47-point type.
Yeah.
And
So-
mostly social media is the short answer.
Okay.
It's one of the things we're working on, is strategies to get into, the schools to get flyers put up.
People
things like
send
that.
emails out through their, if you're in a district, you have a district listserv, or you have you have a way to have somebody get in touch with all the administrators, and also I don't know if you know Kristen Graham, who writes for the Inquirer. She runs this Philly school blog. I'm just because I'm a Philly teacher, I'm connected with her, but we're trying to get her involved in coming, trying to get anybody involved in newspaper or some kind of news coverage, because she did actually cover it, EdCamp Philly post, after it happened.
Yeah.
So trying to get her to come and actually.
The reason I asked is because I know you said that, it's not a tech conference per se, but it seems like technology is very much the way in which you get information out. So how do you sort of ensure that it's not just like a homogeneous?
We're trying to move beyond that.
representation?
This year's EdCamp Leadership, we're going to be on the mailer for the venue that we're going to be at NJPSA, which is the Principal and Supervisors Association in New Jersey. So they're going to put us on their hard copy mailer, so that's going to hit
The DOE sends out.
Yeah, the DOE is going to send stuff for us. NJEA is going to publish us in their reporter newspaper. So
We don't take out ads or do anything like
Right,
a
right.
traditional sort of advertising campaign.
But we are trying to get more into print, traditional media.
Because like Joe,
You can
what
see
he
us.
was, what he was asking about was sort of how this could apply, sort of maybe in a school context. And when I think about my own teachers, not so many who are tech savvy per se, but then thinking how to adapt a model like this or send my teachers to a model like this.
Well, doing it internally with your folks that you're saying that aren't necessarily tech friendly, there's plenty that they would talk about. Absolutely plenty. When you say we're going to give you a day or a half a day to self-organize around things that are important to you, to have these conversations, and you watch what happens when that comes together, it will blow your mind. It will absolutely, and the teachers will feel so much better that, wow, I'm having this time that I have this conversation with my peers that I've not, what do you want to call articulation or whatever. That's essentially what it becomes, and it's extremely powerful.
And this is our wiki space, so it's edcamp.wikispaces.com, and it has
Is that
the
Beth?
list of all of the upcoming events. So if you see one that's relatively local that you want to send your teachers to, this is a good place to keep checking.
The U.S. has been overrun with EdCamps.
Well, yeah.
Well, thank you for your time. I know you have to get back to class.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Get out in the sunshine if you can.